So the question is, can a beginner kitbash and magnetize? So I have some orc bits here from the Commando Kill Team starter set that was left over, and I have some Warhammer Fantasy bits from when I was a kid. Some items you'll need here is some bits, a knife, clippers, and some tweezers. So these Warhammer Fantasy orc bits from 15 years ago, I've gone ahead and magnetized a few of them about 3 years ago or so, just messing around. So I have some arms. I have this torso here with some shoulder and a head magnet already in place, and I think we'll build off of that. But then I also have a bunch of these arm bits that are already magnetized. Now the orc bits are easy to magnetize because they have big shoulders and just big points that you can go ahead and magnetize and put a drill through. I think these magnets are 3mm and a couple of 2s. So like the shoulders are 3, the head is 2. And my Commandos orc bits from the kill team, I have some, there's definitely a lot of extra arms in there. So there's a couple of bolters, there's, and they do have a hole in their shoulders already, so that could get complicating, but we'll go through and we'll see what we can do with putting a drill bit in there. But I'm going to definitely pick out some of these bits, like this backpack we'll use, and there's a bunch of extra heads from that set, and they're all really cool. I really think that they're like just really cool looking. So we'll pick one of these. As you can tell, there's probably like 6 or 7 extra heads. So for my body, I'm going to use my Warhammer Fantasy Orc body. And I'm just going to kind of try to fit some of these orc arms to see how they'll sit. The thing about it is you'll probably have to trim some of these arms just to make them flush with the orc body, but I don't think it'll be too difficult. And it's always good to just go ahead of time and kind of just place and see how your kitbash is gonna go. I like this head, but I like the ponytail on it, so I'm gonna use one of the Orc Commando's heads and chop this ponytail off and stick it on the back just to give it a little bit of variety. I think that'll make it look really cool. So with everything here, as you can see, we'll use mainly just the orc body, and then a bunch of the Orc Commandos bits, and see if we can kitbash something that looks like out of the box Orc Commando, Commando boy. So as you can see here, it's not very flush, so I will take some time to kind of trim it down, make it a little bit more flush. And it's good to just refit them so you don't have any weird random gaps. You can always use green stuff from Army Painter or whichever, but it's good to just trim it down. So here I'm just using a bit without having a bit driver, and here once I have pre-drilled my hole, I throw a magnet onto the body to make sure that it's facing the right way. And then what I'll do is I'll grab my knife and just kind of scoop it up and put a little bit of glue inside of my pre-drilled hole. Now this orc arm already had a hole, so it wasn't too difficult to pre-drill. And then all you got to do is just slap it on. And sometimes if it pops off, just start over. Wipe the magnet of glue, throw it back on the arm that you're going to be gluing it to, and pick it up and give it another shot. It's usually easy, but not always. Sometimes it'll just keep popping off. So just always throw it back on the body and then carefully press it in. And then you can just kind of wipe off the excess glue. So just like that, this will just seamlessly go on there. And like I said, orc bodies are probably the easiest to magnetize because they have such a big area to put a magnet in. And these are 3mm and 2mm magnets. Compared to like the Eldar ones, you'll have to use like the 1.5 or the 1mm. But here you can see it wasn't quite sitting right, and so you can just go back in there and trim it up just a little bit to help it get flush, and then boom. So I'll do another video of how I pre-drill the body holes and throw those on there. But so yeah, let's see this knife here. It doesn't quite sit flush, and this one didn't have a hole unlike some of the other orc bits from the Commandos Kill Team box. So I'm gonna just flush it out a little bit, give it some space and something to sit nicely tight on. And then what I'll do is always fit it, see if it fits nicely. And then I'll grab my little hobby knife and I will drill a little pilot hole for the bit. Doesn't have to be very big, you don't have to push very hard, but try to get it in the center and then just kind of give it a few turns and give it a nice pilot hole to start our drill bit in. And if you get it off to the side a little bit, you can always carve the other way. So here I'm using a bit without a drill. All I'm doing is just pressing hardly in and then just rotating with my fingers. You don't have to have all this fancy equipment, although I guarantee it, a nice little small hand drill would probably make this process so much easier. I haven't gotten one yet. But what you're doing is you're just trying to slowly shave off little bits of the plastic, and kind of once you get that done, again, throw the magnet onto the shoulder piece and grab your knife. Easily just scoop it up, leave it on the knife, and then go ahead, grab your arm, give it a little dab of glue. If you got too much, just wipe some of it off, and then just press your magnet in and slide your knife out and hold it down with your nail. Yeah, and sometimes you can just use the back of your nail to press it in more. Make sure you slide as you press it in so it doesn't just super glue to your nail and then you gotta scrape it off and whatnot. So the next thing we're gonna do is magnetize one of the heads. Again, throw the magnet onto the body, scoop it up. We need to drill a hole in there, so because it already has some space for it, it was a little difficult to pre-drill or to drill a nice rounded hole, but you gotta just kind of use the strength of your fingers and slowly try to carve it out. If it doesn't work, just take your little knife and imagine the hole and make a little bit of room. It's not always going to look that clean, but it does help. So you just got to finesse a little bit, going back and forth. At least that's what I had to do. I know that there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but just take your time, and then kind of fit the magnet in the head on it. And it looks pretty good. The magnet on the body is just sitting there, so we'll go ahead and try to make a little bit more space, and then I'll try to glue it in there. But all I'm really doing is just making a little bit of space with my putty knife, with my hobby knife, carving around approximately the size of the magnet. And so scoop it up. Give your head a little dab of glue. I hate this glue. I get it everywhere. I need to get a Citadel one that with a nice fine metal tip. And then just press your magnet on in, slide off your knife, push in with your finger and or the back of your nail. And then so obviously it's not the most perfect magnetized head. As you can see, there are some gaps on the other side. So let's go ahead and get this ponytail off of this guy and see if we can just glue it onto the top of the other guy's head. I'm not going to reuse this head, so I didn't really care where I cut it, but most of the times when you cut bits, you want to kind of be careful in case you do want to use it in a future kit bash. And it's always nice to kind of get an idea of how you want to line up your bits. I'm just shaving off some of the hair here so I can get it flush onto the head. Going back and forth also does help kind of just see how you want to do things. So, and I already glued the hair off camera, but you want to throw your bits on before you glue certain parts so then you can see if it is in a way of your hand, because I put it on a couple of different sides and I realized that the hair was in the way of the arm, so I had to take it off and put it the other way so my hands could move freely. So now we're going to take this backpack and just trim it down because it doesn't sit very well on his back and his shoulders. And you just take your little hobby knife, carve the shape of his shoulders, and then refit it, check it out, see how it works. And so at this point I feel like it sits pretty nicely. Obviously there's a gap at his lower back, but it still looks very nice sitting there like this. So we'll dab some glue. If you have a glue like this, you can probably understand the frustration, so don't worry if you're always having a hard time. I recommend getting a better glue, which I need to do. So we got this backpack on there, and now let's go ahead and throw the arms. Boom. Looks pretty nice. Boom. And there's just something about magnetizing your miniatures. Now, I think that this is just a great way of being able to interchange heads, interchange arms between your squads. As you can see, in the middle is my kit bash, and on the left and right, we have a couple of Orc Commando boys. And the one on the right is pretty similar to the one in the center that I kit bash, and it looks good. I think he fits right in. He's got a cool backpack. So I think to make him look better, we'll prime him up real quick. Just give him a good black primer coat. I went out and got some real primer instead of using black paint as a primer starter because it has better adhesive qualities and won't just chip off easily once I'm done painting them. So just giving it a nice coat. I usually always spray outside, so it's kind of hard bringing my camera out there, and as you can tell, I'm not just hitting the spray button and holding it. I'm kind of dabbing it and letting it spray a little bit at a time. So here we are. We have one complete Orc Commando kit bash boy. And he looks a lot better painted. So let's go ahead and see if we can put a little bit of color on him to see what he really looks like. But here I have a few other bodies and a few other arms for an idea of building a couple more Orc Commando boys. I do need to get a couple of backpacks, so I might be looking at eBay, but this guy I think turned out pretty good, and if we can make a couple more like them, since in my orc commandos box I didn't make as many boys, I just made a lot of special operatives. These guys will be perfect to replace those operatives in case I just wanted to bring regular commando boys. So let's go ahead, and this is the guy that I painted with my Army Painter speed paints, if you saw that video. And I just switched out the arms to see how they looked and felt after they're magnetizing. As you can tell, it's just seamless. You can grab them from one and put them to the other. So we'll do some zenithal highlighting using my trusty Amazon electric airbrush, which I love. I think this is the most perfect airbrush for beginners. And boom, just like that, we got some zenithal highlight. And I'll do some speed paints on them, but we won't show the process. You can check out my first video for that. But this is a great start to get a cool kitbashed or commando boy. And I love this electric airbrush. It does great. And boom, just like that, we got 2 different commando boys magnetized, kitbashed. And now we can just switch out the arms, one for the other, put heads on the other. And so I think just being able to magnetize and kitbash a little bit make it really exciting, to just a new dynamic to the hobby. And anytime that you want to play a game, you can just switch out their loadout and keep it fresh every time. This is why I love magnetizing. Here I got the wrist magnetized, and you can tell there's a crack, but it's not that hard. I think a beginner can do this right away. I don't think you need to do your basic troops all magnetized, since they'll have the same loadout. But some of your special guys and some of your different operatives who are HQ or elites, I think magnetizing is an awesome